Cropping and retouching in Photoshop has never been easier. We'll start by talking about the new and improved crop tool. You'll select it here on your toolbar. It looks like sort of a cropping tool, or you can press C on your keyboard to get there. And when you select it, this bounding box goes around your image. When you click and drag, what happens is you're resizing the area that you want to crop inside of. This is very different from how the crop tool used to work. In fact, some people aren't ready to make the transition, and if you wanted to, you could go back to classic mode, clicking this little spoked icon here at the top and choosing classic mode. So let me show you how this works, and then we'll show you the new way, and hopefully this will convince you that the new way is much, much better. So in classic mode, what you would have to do, click and drag to create a bounding area around your selection, and that would set the size for the crop. You could reposition it just by clicking and dragging on the inside of it. And when you had it the way you wanted to, you would just click the check mark or hit enter and return. What's different about a regular mode is that when you click and drag, you're actually reorienting the image behind. And this gives you a little more control, I think, about how and where you'd like to crop the image. So I might want to crop right along that pink pole, but include some of the chairs and the details in the background here, like so, dragging a little bit downwards. Now, while you're making your crop adjustments, there are some options on the options bar at the top of the screen that I'd like you to pay attention to. The first one is whether or not you're going to constrain your crop to a particular dimension. Unconstrained gives you full control over all four sides of your crop area. You could also choose original ratio, which would maintain the aspect ratio of your original document. So while you're cropping, you're constraining to that shape. You could also choose a 1x1 square or 2x3, 4x6 orientation kind of a thing. Or you can create and save a preset for a particular size. Let's go back to unconstrained and we'll put the cropping the way I had it before. The next thing that you want to pay attention to is the area here. If you needed to go to precise measurement, and sometimes you might be working on a postcard or some kind of web graphic and you need to enter precise measurements, like I need a photograph that's exactly 3 inches by 3 inches, and you could just enter in the IN, 3 inches, and it will automatically convert it into inches for you. Or if you knew you needed something that was, say, 500 pixels, you could type in PX for pixels, 500 by 500 pixels, and Photoshop will convert it for you into pixels. If you leave the area blank, then you can go back to an unconstrained cropping. The next button will allow you to rotate the crop between portrait and landscape. So that's just a quick toggle button. And then the next one will allow you to straighten your image if your image was shot sort of at an angle by drawing a line on it. So you'll click it first, and then you can click and drag a line. So maybe I'll go like this angle like this. And then it's going to crop based on that angle. I'm going to undo with a keyboard shortcut. Then this is also really handy. The view of the overlay. You can choose the rule of thirds, which is a popular rule when doing photography, where you typically want to put something on one side or the other, but never really in the center, especially in a square image. You can turn on a grid, show diagonals, triangles, golden ratio, which is a mathematical equation. When you put things inside the golden ratio, things tend to look balanced. There's also the golden spiral. And you can say whether or not you want to show the overlay, auto show, never show, or cycle through it. I tend to work with rule of thirds unless I need to do some kind of specific layout in a detailed size. When you have your crop the way you want it to be, you can click this enter button or enter return on your keyboard, or this button up at the top of the screen. This would be to cancel. You could also hit escape. And you can choose whether or not to delete the cropped pixels. And this is new in CS6. If you say yes to delete, you're permanently throwing away all of the pixels outside of the crop area. However, if you leave it deselected, the crop is a live, editable, non-destructive crop, which means that you could go back in and modify it at any time. So I prefer to leave it off, even though it increases the size of my file. especially when I'm working with customers, because sometimes they change their mind and they may want to see something different than that had originally been done, or specs might change, you need to resize it. If that's the case, while you're still in the crop tool, you can resize the crop area like so and have all that information back. It's not lost. It's a non-destructive way of cropping your image. Once you have the crop the way that you want it, then you can start to clean up the image. There are a few sets of tools, and we're just going to briefly touch on them. There's some healing tools here, and we'll deal with the healing brush and the red eye. And then there's some stamp tools, and we'll specifically deal with the clone stamp tool. So let's start with the clone stamp. This is like a rubber stamp where you can ink it up and then repeat, stamp, stamp, stamp as many times as you want. What's really cool about this, however, is that you can sample areas and paint with those areas. So it would be like inking and stamping, and you could change the picture on the stamp as many times as you want. So I'm going to zoom in because I would love to clean up the pizza all over this kid's shirt. And grabbing the clone stamp tool, you need to do a sampling before you paint or stamp with this tool. So the first thing you would do is set the size of the brush and set whether or not the brush has a hard or soft edge. And I'm going to leave it with a soft edge here. And then I want to copy this area and paint with that area on this part right here. To sample, you hold down your Alt or Option key, which turns your brush into a target. So you click once on the artboard, release your mouse, release the Alt or Option key, and then you can click to paint with that information. Notice that as I click, you'll see that plus sign to the left. That shows you the sample or source area relative to the painting area. Now, as I get up here, I might want to resample. So if I resample from here and then shift over to the right, I can cover up the area that was there before. Now I might want to resample from over here, and that's the wrong angle. So maybe resampling here and then bringing it down like that. And then maybe resampling from here and trying to line that up so it's clean. So I did a pretty good job. Of course, I could take a lot more time to clean that up, but that's the general idea. You'll always hold down your Alt or Option key to sample and then click, or you could even click and drag, honestly, to paint. So if I wanted to do a larger sampling like this, then I could just bring it right on top, and there's like a little bit of a ghosted image, and just clicking once. You could also click and drag, like I say, but I would probably, for the best job, keep my sampling area fairly small so I can line it up nice and neatly and just go a little bit at a time until I have it all cleaned up. So that's working with the clone stamp. Now, as far as cleaning up the face, you might want to use some of the healing brushes over here. So let's look first at the spot healing brush. With the spot healing brush, what you'll do is you will click once and release. And what it does is it samples all of the surrounding area pixels and paints with that information on top of the spot that you just clicked on. So if I did it right here, just clicking once and releasing, it kind of takes all the pixel information surrounding. It's not perfect, but it can sometimes do a pretty good job. So it's just gathering information from the surrounding areas. So I could do something like this, get the pizza off the neck there, and no one would be the wiser that this kid was such a slob. Now, another brush is the healing brush, which is different from the spot healing brush. With the healing brush, you do need to sample and then paint. So for instance, under eye circles, did this kid get any sleep? Let's click and sample here, and then we could paint those under eye circles away. And what it does is it takes the original information from the sample area and then it paints with it. That last one didn't do very well, so I'm going to undo with my keyboard shortcut. Let's sample here and paint like that. So you might have to sample a few times and paint, or this tool may not be the exact one for this spot, but you get the general idea. It's sampling and then painting with those sampled pixels. So with something like this, you can clean up blemishes and freckles and other anomalies on the skin. This is a good tool for beauty shots and other fine editing things that you plan on doing. Now, there's another tool under here that's a little weird to use. It's called the patch tool. And with the patch tool, you can patch with the source to the destination or destination to the source. So by default, it's set to source up here. Let's go down to the shirt again. So what you could do is you could drag a marquee area, a selection around a spot. So we're doing the source, and then what you'll do is you'll click and drag on top of another area, and just try to line that up as best I can. Like so. And then what it does is it takes the sampled area that you drag it to and fills with that selection. The other way is with the destination, where you say this part is going to replace that part. You're sort of dragging the destination onto the area that you want to replace. So that's the patch tool. The last one that I want to show you is the red eye. Now these days a lot of digital cameras have excellent red eye detection and elimination automatically, but if you're still working with color film, or you have an older digital camera, or you're in the right circumstances and you still get that red eye, this tool is exactly what you need. It's so easy to use. All you need to do is select it from the toolbar and then click once inside the red area and release your mouse. And it will look for the red and replace it with black. You can also adjust the pupil size using the slider, as well as darken or lighten the amount of adjustment, but it's a single click. Just click once and you're done. That's the basics about working with retouching tools, but we will have a later lesson that deals more in depth with retouching.